loose. I promise no one up here bites.
Oh man, look what I just did.
You're okay. See, that's why I didn't eat any of that stuff. I don't want it on my clothing.
I feel like I got some going at
Mm-mm.
home.
Yes. I just got a notification. He's on live on his Instagram page. I'm live on Facebook and YouTube. What do we put the card in to ask our questions? What do we put the card in to ask our questions?
Is that what's in the seat?
No.
There's no card?
No. I have some questions.
Yeah.
All right, just giving folks a few more minutes to have a seat.
I don't see any. I don't see any. That's why I didn't eat any of that stuff.
I had a plate without it really. All right, good evening, everyone. Give yourselves a round of applause for being in the building. Thank you for our candidates for taking out this time to be here this evening. We are so looking forward to meeting you all and hearing what you all have to say. So welcome. So Room for All Coalition, we are the ones that is putting on this forum because we believe in voice and choice. That you all need to hear from the people who want to lead your community, an opportunity to voice your concerns and to see what plans that they have for your neighborhoods. So just a little bit about Room for All. We're derived of organizations and grassroots and also individuals for New Haven. And we are very, very passionate about affordable, safe, deeply affordable housing. And making sure, yeah, that's right, clap that up, yes, yes. Because we want to make sure that we are at the tables that are making decisions for our communities, especially when it comes to deeply affordable housing, because it seems to be that somebody's not hearing us. Like we're not loud enough. So we about to get real loud. And we want to make sure we have a representative that's going to get loud with us about this affordable housing. See, we don't play about this deeply affordable housing issue. We don't play about this because I'm pretty sure a lot of you in this room have either experienced homelessness or you know someone who has experienced homelessness, or worst case scenario, you yourself may be on the brink of experiencing homelessness. So Room for All Coalition, that is basically our ground. That is what we are known for. You will see our shirts. So if you have any questions, please come see myself or anyone wearing this lovely blue shirt that I will model for you.
Strike a pose. Strike a pose.
Okay, so let me see if there's anything else I need to say to you guys. So if there is anyone who is in need of Spanish translation, will our translator please stand up? Throw your hands in the air, waving like you just don't care. If you need translation, please see her. She will be more than glad to assist you. So, with that being said, right now I'm going to introduce our moderator for the evening. Her name is Jennifer Quay Hudson. Jennifer comes from an organizing and advocacy background, having served as the External Affairs and Movement Building Director at Connecticut Voices for Children, and most recently, the Executive Director at the A Better Way Foundation. Jennifer is now the founder and principal of Catapult, a consulting firm that provides capacity building services for nonprofits rooted in the organizing and advocacy. So please give a nice warm welcome for Jennifer Quay Hudson. I don't know if I can follow up that level of energy. I deal with my kids all day because camp is over. So y'all bear with me. Bear with me. I am here.
It's terrible. You got it.
So welcome to the Room for All Coalition's Candidate Forum. We are excited to have a community-based forum focused on some of the most pressing issues of our state. Tonight's forum will consist of 10 from the front.
Or if you need one, we both have one.
Please raise your hand to our volunteers and they'll bring you the index cards. Unfortunately, we may not be able to get to every question, but we'll ask as many as time will permit. We will prioritize asking questions that are relevant to the powers of the state representative and have a broad impact in our community. So please make sure that the questions are relevant to this position. Thank you for attending. All right, here are the ground rules. We want each candidate to have an equal amount of time answering questions. Therefore, here are some ground rules that will keep everyone respectful and engaged. First, questions will be asked by members of the Room for All Coalition. We went through that, and then the audience will also ask some questions. I will let each candidate know when it is their turn to answer the question on a rotating structure. Please do not answer your question without being called on by me. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. The timekeeper who is here in the front will warn the speaker when they have 30 minutes left and stop them, and I will stop them at the end of it. Oh, sorry, 30 minutes, 30 seconds left. And I will stop them at the end of it. Candidates, they finish their sentences at that point, but unfortunately we'll have to cut them off at the end to make space for everyone. I will let each candidate know when it is time for their turn, and we will rotate to the next person. Okay, so at this time, I just want to have each member of the forum introduce themselves, and we'll just give them 2 minutes apiece to do it. For the microphones, when it is red, it is on. When the light is off, the microphone is off. When you're done speaking, just turn the microphone off so that we don't get feedback. So Terrell, would you like to get us started?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I am Terrell Moore. I am a resident of New Hallville, have been for the last 50 years almost. I'm 49. And I am a pastor. I work at Wexler Grant as a family resource person. The clock's not going. It's not counting me down. And I am a concerned citizen. That's why I'm here at this point.
Great.
I'll enforce my time from there.
Thank you so much. Steve?
Hey, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I'm Steve Winter. I'm the endorsed Democrat running for this seat. And it's so great to be here, and I want to thank the organizers. This is awesome to have happening, and it's what everyone deserves, and I'm glad we're having these conversations. I moved to New Haven in 2007, came here for school, met my wife as an undergrad at Yale, and we spent a few years out in Colorado. She is fine now, but she had an ovarian cancer diagnosis, so we were out there to be with her family. Moved back to New Haven and had some experience actually out in Colorado, living in a cooperative home where that was the only way we could afford housing, was to live in a co-op that we started. So we kind of jailed into a cooperative living situation. We had weekly meetings, we had evening dinners. The rent was just so expensive that that's what we had to do. And it was also, they had occupancy limits where we lived, and that was illegal. So we fought to get the zoning changed so that people could live together in their chosen family communities. So in that process, we lost our home. Our landlord was threatened to not renew our lease, so we got soft evicted. It was really difficult. We had to find a new place to live. But it exposed me to the power of local government. And when we moved back to New Haven, I said, I want to get involved. I was arrested as an undergrad when I went to check on a friend who got arrested, and saw for 6 months how you can get caught up in the court systems. And we still didn't have a CRB, a civilian review board, when I moved back. So I decided to run for alder. And that was my intro to politics here in New Haven. I won. I served the 21st Ward for 5 years. Now I work as the executive director for climate and sustainability of the city, trying to focus on environmental issues that intersect with the issues around housing, around the cost of energy, around clean air and our health every day. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Abdul?
Hey, nice to be here with y'all. My name is Abdul Osmanu. I actually serve on the Hampton Legislative Council in Southern Hampton, or District 3, where I've had the honor of serving for the past 3 years. And I'm a little bit more than that, where, prior to that, I've spent about the past 8 years working in the world of not only community organizing, but in the world of, working for labor organizations, whether we're looking at, the government relations departments, or things of that sort, as well as actually working on policy. When I see myself running in this issue and the issue that we're talking about tonight, I see quite a bit of myself. Growing up, came from a working class family, son of Ghanaian immigrants that moved here in 1997. What helped my dad find his way was his good paying union job, where that is something that we see dwindling day by day, access to that. When I look at the issues of housing, I see myself in that, where God forbid if there was no such thing as the Yale Law Clinic, housing law clinic, I actually would have gone homeless growing up, where, being 7 or 8, a lot of times we actually tell kids growing up, that you're not really cognizant of what's going on, and things of that sort, but oftentimes they really are.
They are. They are.
And when I look at those experiences, whether, personal and lived, the opportunity that I've really had to really intimately work on these issues, whether it's passing what I believe is one of the strongest housing ordinances in the state, to really leading the charge and really being up there to support some of the work that Rep. Porter, who has endorsed me, has been working on all these years. I look at, that and really find the strength and motivation to not only be elected, but be a voice and a fighter for the people in the 94th District. It's been a fighting seat, and I hope to keep it that.
Yes. Thank you.
Right.
So our first question will be from Kima Lloyd Parker. Where's Kima? You can step up to the mic here. Kima Lloyd Parker is from Mothers and Others for Justice.
Yeah. Right, Kima.
My question is, why are you running?
The mic's not on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, why are you running for this office and what are your goals?
We will start with Abdul, and then Terrellyn, and then we'll go to Steve.
Yeah, very good. Start. All right. Yeah, when I really do look at why I'm running, it really does, not only boil down to, many of the issues that I see going down on Newhallville, Southern Hampton, as well as Prospect Hill. But really, I see those as a microcosm for what we see going on around the state. where for many of us, we live in two different Connecticut's. We live in a Connecticut where we have some of the richest, most powerful people in the state that are living well off and continue to live well off. And we have the rest of us that more or less are 2 or 3 paychecks away from housing insecurity, food insecurity, and all of the sorts. And while we deal with this, we have a state legislature that refuses to take decisive action. Where I've had the experience of working up there, for about a year, but you look at it year after year, you see political calculations of sorts over the real issues that are plaguing the people of the state. Where I might harp on it a bit. We have a $4 billion surplus in our rainy day fund. It's a rainy day fund, and if you ask me, I think the flood is already here, and that is why I'm here to run. Because if anything, if anyone here, whether you've been my constituent friend or have actually worked on me with issues, you know that I am a fighter on the issues. I am not afraid to actually stand alone and actually be a voice on the issues that folks aren't speaking to. So when I really look at the goals, it's really pushing the issues of actually deeply affordable housing. And really being creative in how we do that, because I think that personally politicians have got really heavy onto the idea that they can say affordable housing and that could mean something. When
Nope,
cases
doesn't
it
mean
doesn't
so.
mean anything.
It is.
And then all of that sort of we're talking about jobs as well as the environment, which I'll get to that a little later. I actually have been the victim of environmental racism and all of that sort. So speaking and giving a voice to the folks that have been wronged by the state.
All right.
I am running because I live in Newhallville and I have lived in Newhallville for a long time. And I have been able to see all of the things that have been ignored, the people that have been ignored or haven't been heard or feel like they don't have a voice. And at this point, we all feel hopeless because I'm the people that politicians like myself, now I guess I'm a politician, want to represent.
That's right.
I live in the house where I have a cousin who was killed by gun violence. And every day I walk by the same driveway where he was killed. And over the years, I've had a number of classmates who have died to gun violence. Just last week, I was alerted that a friend of ours from the same class died of an overdose. And so I want to get involved in a way where we can create opportunities for those of us who just haven't had the opportunities for whatever reason, and to support young people earlier in life rather than later, and give them opportunities so that we won't have so much attraction to what we call the streets. We need more infrastructure because I do work in the New Haven Board of Education. I see where a lot of times parents need more support because we can't fix children and send them back to dysfunction. So I want to be a part of that change. And that is just, it's heartbreaking because, as I said, we continue to lose young people because I believe that we're just in a state of not having hope and not knowing what our future really can be if we have the opportunities.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'll pick up where I left off. I was talking about how government can make a difference, and that's why I'm up here, because I believe and I've seen how government can make a difference in people's lives. As 5 years as an alderperson for the 21st Ward, I help people solve problems big and small and really get results. Whether that was affordable housing, we got the approvals, helped get the approvals for the Beulah project, worked with a lot of community members, some in the room on that project. That is a deeply affordable project. And that's a project that's a model for the state. It's deeply affordable, it's environmentally friendly, it's community driven. We need new models for providing more affordable housing, for building more affordable housing, for financing more affordable housing. How do we do that? We've got to work together, we've got to build relationships. I've done that. Both of the folks that ran against me for Alder have endorsed me. The mayors in Hamden, New Haven, the presidents of the Legislative Council and the Board of Alders in both towns have endorsed me because I've built those relationships around solving problems for people. whether it's getting a sidewalk fixed or an affordable housing project built, whether it's providing more funding for our youth services, as Terrell just mentioned, or trying to make for a more equitable Connecticut, a more progressive tax structure so that the wealthy are paying their fair share, and we can give some relief to working people and retirees. Those are the big problems facing our state. And we need to build relationships and work with people. We need someone with the conviction and the voice to get out and advocate for people, but also to bring people together and rally people around the ideas that really matter and are really going to make a difference in people's lives. We need more safe places for our young people, more after school and summer programming. We need more investments in education. We need more investments in affordable housing. We need to improve the safety of our streets, clean up our air and our environment. That's going to take a lot of hard work. That's why I've won those endorsements, because we've gotten results on those issues, and we're going to keep fighting for them if I'm elected as your state rep.
Thank you. The next question will be from Lisa McKnight. Lisa is joining us from Witnesses for Hunger.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, if elected, how will you stay connected to the community and bring their voices to the legislative table? How do you plan to bridge the gap between local advocates and decision makers at the Capitol?
We'll
All
start.
right.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll start with Carolyn, move to Steve, and then to Abdul.
I think I want to start off by saying that these guys are professional politicians, and I am not. I'm coming from more of a grassroots kind of thing where it's about, for me, continuing to knock on doors and talk to people. One of the things that I've learned from talking to people as I knock on doors is they feel like we don't come around until it's time for voting season. And so I've learned a lot about some of the groups and organizations that are kind of under the radar, where people are gathering and talking a lot about the changes they want to see in the neighborhood. I think that it is important for anyone that gets this position to not have any preconceived ideas about what is needed. We have to hear from the people that we represent. We have to talk to them. We have to hear their concerns and be able to translate that both ways. Sometimes in the community, things happen and we're unaware because there's some disconnect. And it is important for us to be able to understand what the policies are that are coming down to our communities and be able to translate that for the people who live there so they can navigate whether or not that's something that they want to support. Because a lot of times I feel like I don't particularly like vanilla ice cream, but I'm offered it a lot. And I don't know that chocolate is available. And so that's what I want to bring to the table, really listening and really representing what the people that I serve want versus what I think they might want.
Carolyn brought up vanilla ice cream, so I guess that's a good excuse for me to say, as a white person running for this seat, right, I need to acknowledge it. It will be 100%, 120% incumbent on me to be out there, to be knocking on those doors when it's not election time, to be meeting with community groups, going out to community events, connecting with people. My door will always be open. I will always return your calls. I will always return your texts. I will always return your emails. I will because I have. And I was reelected twice in a heavily black ward because I really worked on those relationships. We had the mansions of St. Ronan Street to the public housing projects on Goff Street. And I made a point to be out there as much as possible. And I will make a point to be out there as much as possible. Because as Carolyn said, it's those relationships that matter. It's having an ear to the ground. It's being present, really present with people and really listening. And that is how I will lead. I will lead by listening. I will lead by understanding. I will lead by empathizing. And I will lead by acknowledging the limits of my own experience and doing everything I can to connect and realize and see the experience of others. I take that extremely seriously. I know I started this off with a joke, but I really do take that extremely seriously. And I would do everything I can to stay in touch with the community in the ways I've mentioned. And I think I really did that successfully as an alder person, and would want to extend that open-heartedness, open-mindedness to the entire district. It has been a wonderful thing to get to know Southern Hamden, to see a lot of New Haven in it, to see a lot of the same challenges, the same problems, and to see ways that we can work together across that artificial line. Because that town line really is just a line on a map. It's all one community, and I will be there day in and day out to serve each and every member.
That's time. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a little correction. Before I actually ran for office, I was actually a longtime organizer in my neighborhood and community, where I think a really big thanks goes out to Justin Farmer, who actually was one of the first people that actually brought me into this work. But also, when I really do look at a lot of my accomplishments, in council, whether it's, housing ordinances that we've passed, funding that we've gotten for infrastructure projects that have gone long, unseen by the town. I actually really do realize that community was behind that, as pretty much the very same mayoral administration that has decided to endorse against me pretty much had a foot on my neck every single time I tried to work on any of these issues and things.
Talk about it. Come on, talk about it.
And the way that I've decided to operate in my 3 years in office, it really has been with the steadfast commitment of the people that elect me, the people that I encounter while I'm elected, and so on and so forth, as well as the groups, are where I derive my power from, not the folks that are the ones that are making like the endorsement decisions, not the folks that are sitting at those huge tables and cigar-filled rooms. It is the people that I actually get my power from, and that is exactly what I'm looking to bring up to the Capitol with me. Though I have actually worked up at the Capitol before and have established relations there, I know that it's 151 people up at that House of Reps, and I'm ready to work hand in hand with my colleagues to get the job done. But I will never hesitate to really go back to my roots and what made me who I am, and working with the people of my community, because there's only one way that we change our state, and it's with the people that are closest to the problem. Because to quote Representative Porter, the people that are closest to the problem are the closest to the solution.
That's right.
Thank you. The next question will be from Carl Ferris. Carl joins us today from UACT. Is Carl with us?
That's Alexis.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. It's raining, so I appreciate it. I'm Alexis Terry. I'm here on behalf of UAG, Unhoused Activist Community Team. I'm also a member of Witnesses to Hunger. And also loosely affiliated with New Haven Housing Fund. So again, thank you for being here. My question is, if elected, would you support setting aside a piece of state-owned land for a sanctioned homeless encampment? And until that land is set aside, suspend all sweeps of unhoused communities on state-owned land, because we could really use a champion at the state level.
Thank you.
That is a great question. That's a great question. Yes.
So we'll start with Steve. Up next, we'll have Abdul, and then we'll have Terrelyn.
All right, thank you for the question. I think it's a great question.
Yes.
And I want to say I don't think that's the right approach, but I do agree with the spirit of it, which is that our state government needs to seriously invest in addressing homelessness and the root causes of homelessness. And I think that we need to really put a public focus on that. I don't think setting aside an encampment in like a park space or some other public space is the right approach to that. I think we look at what the city of New Haven has done, taking a hotel and turning that into a place where folks can go and have their own private room. Because we so often hear, I don't want to be in a congregated setting, I don't feel safe there, I don't feel like I can address my needs there. Giving people a private space where they can collect themselves, get access to services. We really need to invest in that critical infrastructure for people. They deserve more than a tent in a park. They deserve a roof over their heads, access to services, access to counseling, to therapy, to address substance use issues. They deserve all of that. And so I think we need to be demanding from the state that they increase investment in those areas. And we also need to look at homelessness as, you know, the root cause here is poverty and the cost of living for folks. And so I think part of it really is investing in more housing, as we said before, investing in more deeply affordable housing, making sure that we can keep people from sliding into homelessness. And that also gets into underlying issues around tenants protections, making sure that we have just cause evictions laws, making sure that there are reasonable limits on the amount that rent can increase year over year, that balance a landlord's ability to maintain their property with the fact that we can't have rents that go up 30% year over year. And that's what our neighbors are seeing, and it's just not fair. So it's a big complex issue, but we need to demand more investment from the state of Connecticut.
Great, thank you.
Well, I think to start off, I would probably like to offer a little critique to the some of the encampment sweeps that we've seen in New Haven, especially as we see a Supreme Court decision that has decided to criminalize homelessness.
Come on.
Which is definitely dangerous because we know the people that are dealing with this closely. They are Black and brown people, our Black and brown friends. We all know how we oftentimes interact with the carceral system. All the while, the idea of the state allowing state-owned property as a form of encampment might not be perhaps the best idea, but it also does beat some of what we've seen where the state offering pennies on the dollar for like rich big developers and investors to actually come in. Where we actually have doubled down on Trump-era policies of opportunity zones, not only at the national level, but actually at the state level where we offered that. But when I really do look at it, we also really do need to actually offer, more pathways to affordable housing. One of which actually we have the opportunity to really do in this time and moment where we have $600 bonded out at the state level, and $600 million bonded out at the state level.
Maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, maybe we could try to add up like 600. But yeah, one of the things I would really like to see the state actually pursue is, while we actually go after these slumlords that really plague our cities and communities and drag on us, not just yet, offering tenants the opportunity to actually purchase, where one of the things that we've actually seen, and it's been modeled for us, is not only giving these tenants the opportunity to actually rent affordably, but once we actually seize these properties from like blight liens and things of that sort, giving them the opportunity, possibly with low interest loans, to actually be able to own.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm on Jeopardy. Could you restate the question? These guys are taking us everywhere.
So, if elected, would you support setting aside a piece of state-owned land for a sanctioned homeless encampment? And until that land is set aside, suspend all sweeps of unhoused communities on state-owned land.
Thank you.
That's just not stable. Not stable.
So the sweeps seem so human kind of, because if that's the only place people have to live, then the sweeps just seem so wrong. I know of churches that it probably wasn't right, but their hearts were in the right place, that were trying to support homeless people, and they were feeding them and letting them stay the night, and they were getting in trouble for it. And so what's wrong with a society that is penalizing people for helping people in need? So we need to reevaluate our heart concerning our fellow man. Now, this might be the preacher coming out of me, so just bear with me. We have to, again, not look at it as those people, because all of us are in a situation where if a check or two is missing, we're in trouble. And we could end up the same homeless people that we are ignoring or not helping now. So we gotta really reevaluate these things that we have just kind of let the snowball happen because of policies, or people are scared of insurance purposes. They don't want to be sued. They don't want to help. We got to put some real things in place that support people before they fall through the cracks. I got 30 seconds. And so I grew up on 55 Division Street. It's an empty lot right now that's overgrown.
I also grew up
And
on 45 Division Street.
What you say? Pardon me, 32. Let me hurry up, 96. And I look at it constantly because I'm saying it's a space that's empty and it's a space that could be used. I have had a lot of thoughts about it. I said, well, won't we make it tiny homes for people who age out of foster care, who no longer have a home anymore? So we have to reevaluate that whole situation of homelessness.
Okay, so we are moving on to the audience section of tonight's event. I have two questions here. The first question, the audience member wanted to ask it herself. So Shelby, can you come up?
But I really want to, it's important for me to ask this question in person, and I kind of want to be a little closer. So I think for me, Representative Porter, I think she is a special representative to all of us, and I think not just for New Haven, I think across the state. And it's important for me for whoever is building schools. I'm hearing a lot of good answers, but to me, they're just really good answers. And I think the work and what is required at the Capitol, it takes a lot more than good answers. So, I mean, I'm hearing that, you're a pastor, you work here, and you do this, and I'm also hearing, I'm gonna be door knocking. Like, I don't know how, we're gonna be able to balance all of these things. And it takes a lot to be at the Capitol. So I would hope that maybe in some of the answers that you guys are gonna be given, that you can kind of explain your process for how you're gonna get the work done, because I appreciate you guys for having good ideas and being knowledgeable on the topics, but it is important for me, for whoever takes this seat, that the community is leaning on you. We're putting a lot of confidence in you. So I hope you could speak a little bit more to just, the issues are easy to identify, right? There are two Connecticut's and it's not hard. So I'm gonna stop and thank you so much.
First, we'll have Carolyn, then we'll have Steve, and then we'll have Abdul.
I'm glad she said that, because as a person that lives in that neighborhood, I feel the same way. It's one of the reasons why I'm running, because a lot of times it feels like politicians are talking heads. They don't really get it. And when you're trying to express, the things that we want in our neighborhoods, it seems like it falls on deaf ears. And so what I don't want to do, where did she go out? What I don't want to do is overpromise and underperform. Realistically, all we can do, and they can speak for themselves, all I can do is be as open as possible, have an open door policy, talk to you as much as possible, and as I forestated earlier, be transparent, be integral, and really try to speak to the issues that are most important to us day by day, step by step, and let's try to do it together. It's not a us and them. We are all in the same boat. We're all trying to feed our families, have a working wage, make sure our sons and daughters come home safe when they leave at home in the morning, they come home at night, and to just do it together, to build, like Steve said earlier, strong partnerships where people feel like they can talk to you and voice their opinions and their concerns and their ideas. And let's just try to build something step by step, day by day, that really works for everyone involved. And I yield my time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to also share all the gratitude and recognition for Representative Porter. I think everybody in this room agrees that she's done an amazing job. As a constituent, I am grateful because she was always there to return my calls and answer my concerns. I think that would be the first thing. It's the first word on my flyer if anyone's gotten one of the 10,000 flyers we dropped off, is responsiveness, right? Getting back to people, being communicative. I think that is a core and overarching piece of the role for people to feel heard, for people to feel represented, and for us to know which issues to prioritize and address. But I think we've also heard, which is true, we know what the issues are. And we've got to be really focused on policy and resources to address those issues. And I think we all share a deep belief that it starts with our young people. It starts with investing in our children. And so I would really prioritize youth services, education, juvenile justice reform. These are core issues that affect our young people and prevent our young people from accessing the opportunities that the other half of Connecticut has.
That's right.
Now, of course, this group, we don't have to talk about housing and how important it is, but we can talk about what the solutions are. The reason we have the Beulah project is because they got a 9% low-income housing tax credit. There is a limited amount of those tax credits, and we need the state to find new models for financing affordable housing. There are great examples of that, like Montgomery County has a housing production fund where they take out the construction loan, which is the most expensive part of financing housing, and they use public funds for it. So then they can build more income, low mixed income housing and provide more affordable housing. We also need housing that's green and environmentally friendly and investments in our public spaces like parks and safe streets. So we need to focus on those priorities.
Thank you. Abdul.
Yeah, I think I would also like to extend my thanks to Representative Porter for a lot of the work that she's done, especially being someone, one of the first people I actually talked to when I was thinking about running and ultimately receiving her blessing. But when I really do think about getting the job done, for me it starts with the experience of actually working up in that Capitol, understanding that it is the work that you do before session. And the things that you have before you're in that building that matter. Because I have that experience of knowing if your bill is not running in 2 or 3 weeks, your bill is dead. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
So you can have the great idea, you can have all the beautiful, wonderful policy behind it. If it doesn't have the legs behind it, it's dead. And that is why one of the things that I really do want to prioritize is the fact that there's many, many groups up at the Capitol. Where that are doing the work already, where it easily could be that I could be elected and step into my first term, and there's already more than enough work to actually be done and worked on at the state level because there's people that have been pushing that for years and years. Where I know one of the big things that is probably going to be pushed this year is probably just cause evictions.
Yes. Come on.
I would need that.
Where when you really do look at it, a lot of times there is no need to be overly flashy and recreate the wheel because the solutions are right in front of us. The money is right in front of us. The ideas are right in front of us. It just takes someone that has the experience, conviction, passion, and knows personally what's at stake. Whether we're talking about the environment where growing up, I was actually lived the first 6 years of my life in the Bronx. Where out of my 4 siblings, 3 of us actually had respiratory issues. And I was one of those 3. And luckily, I was the only one out of those 3 that actually didn't have asthma. Only had a really bad case of wheezing, but living in the South Bronx, yeah.
Thank you. We're gonna step back a little bit in the agenda. I skipped Melissa Singleton. Is Melissa here with us?
Yeah.
Melissa is joining us from the People's Collaborative for Well.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me time to jump back in. Okay. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you for trying to fill a very, very important seat. We appreciate it because that seat has been filled for many years by somebody very, very important, so we appreciate her as well.
Amen.
My question is, what is your vision for fixing the housing crisis in our district, and how would you use your position to make that vision a reality? Please be as specific as possible. Thank you.
First, we will start with Abdul, we'll go to Terrellyn, and then we'll end with Steve.
I really do look at the tenant opportunity to purchase as one of the most important transformational things that we really can do.
Okay.
Where that not only actually gives the opportunity to actually like preserve affordable housing, because when you actually look at it, in the state of Connecticut, we're actually set to lose 5,000 affordable units in the next 5 years. But it also, which on that actual topic, we can build 3,500, affordable housing units per year. But it means nothing if we're losing 5,000, every 5 years and so on and so forth, and that's only what we're tracking. So I really do look at tenant opportunity to purchase as one of the true things that, we can actually do to really transform our ability to actually preserve affordable housing. Because as it stands with many of the contracts that you actually see, where you have a certain percentage market rate and then a certain percentage affordable, if you actually look at those contracts, they're only sure to be affordable for 30 or 40 or so years. And we're kind of really just creating, hamster wheels for ourselves, where it's affordable for only so long, and then it rolls back into being market rate and we're dealing with the same issue again. And that's even if the fact, where you're actually living in that affordable unit, that you don't get no fault evicted out of your house. So I think that is why this is an all-encompassing issue for me on how we address it. It's not only, tenant opportunities to purchase, it's not only like really striving to actually push really deeply affordable housing, because, we have this thing called AMI, which is area median income, which is kind of skewed and flawed. So the AMI for this area is $110,000. The average family in New Hallville makes $55,000 a year. If your AMI is above, if your AMI is actually above 50% of the AMI, that's not affordable to anybody in this neighborhood. So that is the most important metric that we should be looking at. And that's how you, if not, you end up with developments such as some of the new apartments we've seen on Munson Street.
My answer is what he said. Along with, we need a working wage. I have a master's degree and I'm embarrassed to tell you what I make.
Yes.
And that's real talk. If my mother did not own the house that I live in, I would be calling Steve because I would be on the green with a cardboard box. Because I really cannot afford as an adult to I can't afford to buy my own place. And with $3,000 rents, I can't afford to rent a place that costs that. And then I don't know. And I know that along with that, there are folks who have less education and less skill than I do, and their pay is way lower than mine, and they just are having a hard time. And so we have to, like I said before, we have to work together to see how these programs are being rolled out. We have all this money, but how is it not getting to the people that need it? It goes back to the PPP loans and everything else. When this money comes around, it never gets to the people that need it the most. And so we have to make sure that we are watching those policies and writing those policies in a way that the folks that are really at the greatest detriment get it and that they benefit from it the most.
The first thing I'd say is I've got some experience building affordable housing as an older person. We built new houses on West Division, on Dixwell. We fixed up houses on Sherman. We've got more houses on the way on Thompson Street with neighborhood housing services. We built new housing on West Hazel and fixed up a property on West Hazel as well. A lot of those were affordable first-time home ownership opportunities. A couple of those were affordable rentals. So I mean it. I'm serious. I've got the conviction. I've done it, and I want to keep doing it on a larger scale. I mentioned the Beulah project. That's a mass timber building. It doesn't get more environmentally friendly than that, and it's going to last forever. And it's going to be a wonderful place to live. But it's deeply affordable because of that 9% low-income housing tax credit I mentioned. There's a limited pool of those. We need to look at facilitating more people to take advantage of the 4% tax credit, which is an unlimited pool to help bring on more middle-income housing. And we also need, I mentioned the Housing Production Fund in Montgomery County as another way that the state can can finance more construction of affordable units. We also need to look at the housing quality that people live in here and now today. A limited set of very wealthy landlords control an enormous amount of the property in this city. And we need to support cities and towns like Hampton and New Haven that are holding them accountable. And also look at additional layers of protection to go after repeat offenders in a more serious way at the management company level that controls so many properties that are falling apart around our tenants. We also need to incentivize other communities in Connecticut to share the burden. It should not just be on New Haven to have, and Hartford and Bridgeport to have all the affordable housing. We need to push for more zoning reforms so that those communities are developing housing as well. And so that poverty isn't concentrated in just a handful of census tracts in one of the wealthiest states in America.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. This is a question from the audience. Despite the Democrats controlling the House by a large majority, how will you work with your colleagues across the state, Republican and Democrat, to get bills passed? We will start with Abdul, we'll go to Terilyn, and then we'll end with Steve.
Well, I think I'll start with the housing ordinance that we passed that, recognized tenant unions in probably the most broadest way in the state. Was passed unanimously.
Yes.
We worked together and we built a consensus to pass that, Republicans and Democrats alike. Where I think this question does really bring up one of the things that's always been frustrating. We have a supermajority. You look over in some of the states in the Midwest where they have a one-seat majority, and you have kids that have free school lunches and all of the sorts. So one of the things that I really am hoping to do is kind of use the same energy that I've been able to bring in knowing that I know and understand how to work with my colleagues, but also knowing that I know how to take it to the streets and fight, and having that be one of my real big things that I really push on. And kind of, I think for me, a really unique opportunity, well, not only unique to me on the stage, but also Terilyn, really putting a fire under the Black and Puerto Rican caucus that we have at the state level, where we have about 40 or so seats in the Black and Puerto Rican caucus. And we should be treating that house like it is our house, because it is our house. Where we should be able to pass some of the most forward-thinking progressive policies that uplift the people in this community and people of color all around the state, which actually benefits everybody, because when you lift from the bottom, everybody gets elevated.
That's right.
It is just beyond me that we are not at this current state, but it's one of the things that I'm ready to actually take on if elected, because the people of this neighborhood, the people of this state, to be really truthful and honest, don't actually care, who actually voted for. Who voted in order to pass whatsoever. They care that the thing passed and that it actually is effective in its implementation is actually improving the lives of folks. So I'm here to get things passed, whether I'm passing it with Democrats, Republicans, whoever.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, let's see. This is coming from the audience. Whenever I try to get a voucher, they tell me I have to wait because nothing.
You gotta give them the chance to answer the first question, the last question.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, we were watching. We were helping you. You have help from the floor.
We'll work with you.
We got Terilyn and
I think it's important that we all work together. It is my intention to, like he said with the Black and Puerto Rican caucus, to get more people active in the actual weekly meeting, monthly meetings, whether it's on Zoom or whatever. I think the more that we come together and we establish the people from the neighborhood getting involved, and I know that's sometimes that's like pulling teeth, but it's important. And even as I knocked on doors, I was saying to people, they were, oh, you guys, just come and you want to do what you, and I'm like, no. If you get involved, your voice can be heard at the meetings, and then those that represent you, you can hold them accountable. And so we have to continue to push forward with getting people involved in the local organizations and meetings so that we can have a stronger presentation in Hartford. And we can just work together more on the things that impact us the most. Like Abdul just said, it is not about Democrat or Republican. We're all needing to come together and get policies that work for everyone. I don't think anymore that it's white or black. It's more economic than anything else. And we need to really work together to make sure that those that don't have a voice in Hartford, and that we continue to make policies that help us all at the end of the day. And I yield my time.
I would just start out by saying that, again, I've done it, and I've been a part of it, and I've worked with others to do it. And the first thing I would point to is when Donald Trump was elected, we all felt a lot of different ways about it. But one of the things that really hit home for me was he did not win the popular vote. There were millions more people who voted for Hillary. And that was such an injustice, and I think still remains an injustice and a failure of our systems. So I decided I was going to do something about it. I read an editorial in the newspaper that a guy named Jonathan Perlow wrote about the national popular vote and decided to get involved with that movement. It's a movement of states that all agree to pledge their electoral college votes to the national popular vote winner. Well, it took a few years because they say things in Hartford typically take 3 years, but we built that coalition. It was bipartisan. It was big cities, small towns, medium-sized cities. But we got that bill passed. We were the first state in the country to join the national popular vote after Donald Trump was elected, and I was proud to be a part of that. But it takes that coalition building. The one thing I want to emphasize is it's not just about party. The major cities in Connecticut are 11% of the population. If you want to get things done, you've got to appeal to people who are in mid-sized cities or small towns. And I think a great example of somebody who's got the experience to get that done is Senator Looney, who led the passage of the changes to the payment in lieu of taxes bill. And that was such an important bill because the way they structured it, he was able to go to a mid-sized city or a small town and say, this is in your interest too. Here's why you need to join me on this bill. And that's how he built that coalition. And so it's being creative, appealing to people who are from different communities, finding common interests, and sticking with it from the idea to the next year getting it through committee, the next year getting it through the legislature.
Thank you. Okay, now here's the audience question. Whenever I try to get a voucher, they tell me I have to wait because nothing is available. What are your plans to bring more state rental assistance vouchers to Hamden and Newhall section of the district? We will start with Steve, we'll go to Abdul, and then Carolyn.
Thank you. I like I said before, I think we really need to be looking at protections for tenants, meaningful protections for tenants. Certainly we need to be looking for more resources for rental assistance and also calling on our federal delegation for support at the federal level. But we also need to look at, like I was saying before, housing quality, the conditions that people are living in now, and how we can support the cities and towns that are charged with policing housing quality. I was proud in my first term as an alder to work with LCI and the Board of Alders to make reforms to our housing code enforcement policy. I'm glad to see the city investing in additional capacity so that it can expand inspections. And I'm glad to see Hamden taking on those reforms as well as the tenant union legislation that I was a part of when the Board of Alders passed it as the first city in Connecticut to pass tenant union legislation. I'm proud of all that work, but at the state level, we need to continue to support that work. And I think that means looking at, again, how do we hold
That just happened.
landlords and large management companies accountable for housing code conditions? How do we strike a balance between a landlord's reasonable interest in maintaining their property, right? We want those units to be maintained, but not having enormous, unsustainable, and crushing increases in rent year over year. And the last thing I'd say is we need to really be investing in improvements to our housing stock so that people have a good roof over their heads, that housing is energy efficient, respectful to the environment, so that people are also not struggling with really burdensome utility bills. So we've got to approach this from many different angles: assistance, tenant protections, investment in housing. It really takes an all of the above approach because people are living in some really, and struggling with some really challenging conditions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know the state there's certain issues in dealing with the releasing of vouchers, and I think that really is why we need to double down on some things such as talking about tenant opportunities to purchase and things of that sort. The construction of more affordable housing and deeply affordable housing for those vouchers to actually mean anything. But when we actually roll to tenant protections, funny enough, New Haven actually was the first municipality to pass, stuff recognizing tenant unions. But funny enough, in Hampton, we actually began that, a little bit like earlier, passed a resolution to which, our lawyers, our town attorneys weren't really comfortable. So, then with the folks that we were working with, we actually passed it off to New Haven to be able to pass so we can come back to our lawyers and tell them, that it was then feasible. And I have always been, I think that we also really do need to double down on the issues of, tenant protections, as that is one of the most important things, where I'm proud to, be part of, one of the many coalition partners that actually helped to get past the right to counsel, where tenants facing eviction proceedings actually now have right to counsel in, some of our most impoverished zip codes. I was there in the fight for our rent caps. I was there in our fight for just cause evictions. And actually knowing, the intimate partners in that coalition and being a part of that fighting team is something that I look forward to being a part of as state representative, because I've not only lived the issues, but I've lived working on those issues, not only as an elected official, but as a, concerned person, not only for the folks that, I care about most, but also myself.
Thank you.
The question was, how do we get more vouchers, right?
What are your plans to bring more state rental assistance and vouchers to Hampton U-Haul section of the district?
Right. So I think this goes back to the point I was making a little while ago, that a lot of the times the money doesn't go to where it's needed the most. We have to start reevaluating how this money is being distributed. And in order to know exactly what we need and how much more of it we need, we can talk very fancy and say all these things, but the bottom line is sometimes we have to streamline those items on the list of where the money is going. We have that issue at the Board of Ed. Sometimes money is divvied out, and because it's specifically for one thing that is no longer needed, we still have to spend the money on what's no longer needed when there's so much need everywhere else. We have to go back and really reevaluate and streamline where the money is going, because there are programs who have a lot of money but cannot find the people to serve. And this is a whole problem. When people's lives are at stake and it's a matter of having a place to live or being outdoors, we can't have a whole bunch of money going to a place that has nobody over there has a need. We have to reevaluate. We have to get some things in place where we're constantly re-looking at ourselves and just being transparent. If it worked last year, it may not work this year. If this is what was needed, we had food trucks come to the elementary schools and people didn't come out for it. And then I said, hey, maybe because we got so much more food stamps and things because of COVID. You got to just start looking at how things have been working and where we can make it work better. And we gotta, that is not something that you just do one time and then say, set it and forget it. We gotta continue to do, we gotta continue to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 more questions here. Oh, 3 questions. Actually, Claudette, I'm gonna have you come up and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, this is a question from a member of the audience. My name's Claudette Kidd. Where do you stand on the App Foundation? And did you stand with the community?
So we'll have Abdul, Carolyn, and then Steve.
So pretty much a couple of months into my first term, this issue of the App Foundation did come up. And as nuanced as I'll explain it, yes, I did stand with the community of New Hallville in standing against the App Foundation. Where, funny enough, the parking lot for where it was proposed actually fell in my district.
Yeah.
Thus, making it even a broader concern, even more so than, the fact of it, being in the general community and area. And when we really do break it down, it really is the nuance of, treatment towards addiction is something that we need in, many communities. I don't know many folks that don't have a loved one in their life that doesn't have anyone that isn't dealing with substance abuse issues. But when we break it down to the principle of letting community members know, having the autonomy, and ability to actually, know what is going in your community and being able to actually have meaningful input. That is where I found, big concern. Where if we were setting that up in East Rock, if we were setting that up in Westville, if we were setting that up in Spring Glen and Hampton, if we were setting that up in Westwoods and Hampton, we would have had all the community forums in the world to talk about that.
That's right.
And that is absolutely, absurd in the way that it was actually tried to be done. And that's why I came up against it. Where I think one of the big things for me in running is making sure that our community feels respected. Our community isn't left with the crumbs, because that is what we've been forced to be given for so long, and that is not what we deserve. Nothing will happen about us without us. And that is one of my biggest priorities in serving as your state legislator. And yeah, I'll yield the rest of my time.
I agree with Abdul. Again, I am from that neighborhood, and it does feel like a lot of times this is what I said from the beginning, we're offered things and we're supposed to just take it and accept it. And it goes back to us standing up, us coming together, and us making sure that our neighborhoods are not places where people with a lot of money and resources feel like they can dump whatever they want on our streets and it's okay with us. We have to have people in places that understand what is going on in our community, not because they drive from other towns to work here, but because they live here, they are part of the community, and they're invested in this community. I don't take anything away from those who have drug addictions. Like I said earlier, we've lost people from gun violence and drugs and all kinds of things, but we can't have those sorts of things in our community where our kids walk by, or even in our neighborhood, they wanted to do a warming station, and it's good in theory, but at night when they can't get in, they're going to be wandering around our neighborhoods and not have a place to go, and that puts our safety at risk. We have to find a way to help people without opening up other people to injury. And those are the things that again, the question was, did I stand with the people? I always will stand with the people of the 94th. And we're going to make sure that we continue to get things done in a way that protects our interests and protect the people that live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with Carolyn and Abdul 100% with what they've said. And, as somebody who lives on Dixwell Avenue, hearing about it, if somebody called me, I couldn't believe it. Like Abdul said, no consultation with the community, no outreach, no nothing. No calls to any, I was the alder at the time, no calls to any of the alders, not even the alder who represents that area. It just happened. It just got dropped like a bomb on this community. And that in and of itself was wrong. And I agree with what was said about the deep and real need for this kind of treatment, and the hurt and the pain and the suffering for the people with addiction in our community, our friends, our families. But that is not, we really need that whole district, right? That New Hallville, Highwood Commercial District, we need to lift it up, right? The state has given money to Grand Avenue, right? There's money for Whaley Avenue. There's money for Kimberly Square. But what about Dixwell Avenue? This is one of the great streets in our city. When I walk down these beautiful tree-lined streets, these wide promenades, you know, you can see the beauty that was there when those shops were filled up. We need a real investment in making this a place for our community where people can go to gather, to go to businesses, to get a meal, feel safe. We need tree trimming, tree planting, better lighting. We need to be investing in that. We need to be asking the community, what do you want to see in this downtown Main Street area? That's our little downtown for this part of the city. So I think people have been loud and clear. They want youth services. They're excited about the school proposal. They want to have services that they can access. And so that's the kind of investment we need. And I think one good thing is that we got some of that organizing out of this. And I think it's awesome what's come out of it in terms of the Development Corporation.
Thank you. Okay. Question from the community. What would you do to encourage Latino voting in your community? First, we will have Steve, then we will have Abdul, and then we will have Carolyn.
Thanks for the question. I think it really starts going door to door, and there's been a lot of door-to-door campaigning this campaign, and I think that is awesome. To Abdul, to Terrelyn for going out and hitting the doors and bringing those voter registration cards. And I know just enough Spanish to be able to register someone, and it is awesome to do it on the door. So I think that's one really important thing, is meeting people where they are in their homes and explaining to them why it's so important, why it really matters, why you've got to vote. If you don't vote, that's just another form of participation. You've got to vote. You've got to make your voices heard.
Right.
You've also got to look at institutions, right? We need to be working through our school system, making sure that kids are taking that message home to their parents, working with our churches. I went in my role with the city, telling folks about energy efficiency programming to a Spanish-speaking church in Hamden a few weeks ago. There were maybe 100 people there that evening on a weekday night. So folks are coming together, they're gathering around the things that they value, around the things that they care about. And we need to be there to meet them in those spaces and explain why this is so important. The other thing I would say, going back to our schools, is civics, right? We really need to be centering civics and citizenship, the duties, the responsibilities, and the power of citizenship in our education system. And, you know, we have a very multilingual community here in the New Haven community, the greater New Haven community. There's about 60 languages that are spoken. So that civics message has got to come through loud and clear in English, in Spanish, in Pashto, in Arabic, in all of those languages, so we can bring everyone in to this conversation.
That's right. Thank you.
Repite la pregunta, por favor.
Como se dice? I'll do my best. What would you do to encourage Latino voting in your community?
Well, yeah, I've had the pleasure of, in this campaign, being able to speak with folks in Spanish, as it's really weird. So I have 3 languages that I speak. You know, as my parents, you know, have their native language that they speak in Ghana. But in spending like the first couple of years of my life in the Bronx, as I was learning all of my language with a little bit of Arabic dashed in there because I'm Muslim, I picked up on Spanish weirdly easily. So it's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to really connect with our Latino community in that way. But yeah, we really do need to be culturally competent and responsive to, you know, where the people of different communities are. You know, where they actually congregate, you know, what's the most important places for them to actually be and for us to actually meet them. And yeah, I think that our education system really is where it starts, where kids are able to actually get, you know, culturally responsive information and actually bring it back to their parents and be able to disseminate things of that sort, which I would say we don't really even have the funding or infrastructure for. Where even in the New Haven public schools, we have certain schools that don't have librarians, let alone the ability to actually, you know, take care of things bilingually. So we are far behind, you know, in our journey to do that. But si se puede, I think we have the opportunity to actually band together and really be culturally responsive. And part of that actually deals with hiring and how we go about, you know, preparing and giving folks the resources that they need to be able to excel, no matter where they come from, no matter what language they speak. And yeah, with that, I'll see you the rest of my time.
All right.
This is an opportunity for me to shout out my department at the New Haven Board of Education. We are the Family Resource Centers. It's 5 of us: Fairhaven, Hill Central, Brenner Rogers, Wexler. And this summer I had the privilege of working in Fairhaven, which is predominantly Hispanic. The beautiful thing about that is those parents are very active. Very active. So it's not really an issue of trying to find them like we are in certain areas or trying to, you know, they are there. So if it's an issue of trying to get them to be responsive to vote, I think they're already engaged in civics already because we're a sanctuary city. And they know a whole lot about those things, and it's just the next level for them if we could provide the information, the registration cards, anything that we want them to know as far as voting and getting involved with politics. As long as those resource centers have it, those parents have it, they're engaged, they bring stuff back, they're ready to go. So that is definitely a resource for anyone who might be trying to support Hispanic and you know, getting them more involved in voting. That's definitely the way. Family Resource Centers, we rock, and find the one in your community.
This last question is Ron. Ron, you want to read the question?
Oh, sure, I can. The last one, what happened to mine?
Oopsie, I'm too short, so I just hold it. So I am the 5th District Council person in town of Hampton, and so it's my first term. I was elected in November of last year. Abdul is one of my colleagues, along with Lori Sweet. We are really, really super excited about the economic development that we would like to see happen in the Southern Hampton area. As you know, and I've already been talking about it extensively with the residents of Southern Hampton, is that from Skiff Street all the way to Broadway was redlined in 1937. That was intentional. Our federal government did it intentionally, and then intentionally created the Merritt Parkway in 1938 and opened it. So the question I want to ask you lovely folks up here is, what are your plans to bring economic development to the New Hampton development area? And that means anything down to Goodrich Street, because there's not much, we need jobs. I know we need affordable housing. We need a job that you can actually pay regular rent. So that's my question. What are you going to do on the street?
First we will have Abdul, and then we'll have Carolyn, and then we'll have Steve.
Yeah, I know it's done quite a bit at the municipal level, where on council as a part of ARPA we were able to approve funding for it. But better support of small businesses through our small business grants really is one of the things I would like to see us work on to be able to really beautify our corridors with bustling businesses. where, when you do look at, the Dixwell corridor, pretty much from close to the Hampton border all the way down into New Haven, once was really, super vibrant, still is vibrant in its way, but there's much more that we really have the opportunity to do about that. Where it extends from, grants that we have the opportunity to really give down to small business owners and possible small business owners, all the way to really being able to instill it within like our education system. And once again, that's why I'll double down on the fact that we need to fight for more education funding at the state level. Because through that we have the opportunity to really pursue programs that give kids that grounding and that understanding of not how only the idea of creating a business, but how to be successful. Because let's be serious when we look at it. I would rather give way for small businesses rather than a lot of times the tax breaks that we see given to the largest corporations, especially multinational corporations that have no roots in our community. But we actually do need to do what we can to support the people that want to create small businesses, because statistically speaking, your chances of failure as a small business owner oftentimes are really high. So if we really do see it as a priority to value the business owners of our community rather than the business owners of wherever the heck, we actually need to double down whether we're talking about grants, education, or otherwise, even zoning.
I agree. I think that there needs to be more funding given towards Black businesses especially, because there seems to be a disconnect. There's so many businesses that fail in our city because some people just don't have the information. So if we could have some sort of, I guess pipeline would be the word, a pipeline for those who are in business to be connected with the Small Business Administration, that the registration for that is like $600 or $700. A lot of business owners can't afford that. So if there's some sort of training or funding so that those who want to be in business can get the correct training on how to do their taxes properly, get connected to CPAs and lawyers that can help them set up their business and structure them properly so that they're not being taxed twice because they had the wrong LLC or C Corp, however they have it set up, it's not proper. And there was a program this summer that I was involved with. It's called Seated, and it had to do with bringing Black and brown people to the table to be on boards and give you the information on what that means. And I think it's a shout out to Kim Burgess, I think her name is, Bianca Burgess. She ran that program and it was free to us because there was funding involved, but a lot of people don't know the ins and outs of how to run a business. And I think that would be proper for us to put more money towards helping people, not only that are in business already, but those that are starting businesses to have the information and the support before they get into businesses that they can't sustain.
All right, I've got the benefit of going last again. Lots of good stuff has come up. Some things that I'd want to elevate as well, investing in our education and also the technical education aspect of that. So we have people who, if they're great with their hands, maybe they don't want to end up going to college. Are we going to be able to have space for them in the school where they can learn to be an electrician, or learn to be a plumber, or learn to be an HVAC tech? There is a lot of money to be made in these professions. They are in high demand. If you've had to pay a plumber or an electrician lately, they're making great money. That can become a business for them. They can move from working with someone to working for themselves. Investing in our commercial corridor is something that a few of us have talked about already, but I think that's really the spine of this district, right? So let's strengthen that spine. Let's make those leasehold improvements that Abdul mentioned, so that we're helping small businesses and also improving the real estate value of that corridor. And then I think we really need to be real about some of the issues in northern New Hallville and southern Hampton. We've got a lot of empty lots. That's not good for business. That's not good for people living next door. We've got to work on turning that into housing. We also need to look at, and I know Abdul and Justin Farmer have been involved in this, but the Six Lakes Park that is a huge economic development opportunity.
Yeah.
When you've got 100 acres in the middle of town lying fallow, that could be providing valuable services as a park to folks. So I think that's a big economic development opportunity. The same with the former Hamden Middle School site, right? If we could turn that into a community center or a rec center serving the community, they would turn something that's a real blight and something that's driving people away into a magnet that's going to attract investment, that's going to attract business. So I view the state's role as picking out those structural pieces in the district and investing in them to catalyze growth in businesses and in our young people.
It's been a long night. Well, we have our last question here. What do you see as the challenges that are faced by Connecticut public school students and community college students and students at our state universities? What will you do at the legislature to address it? First we'll have Carolyn, then we'll have Steve, and then we'll have Abdul.
One of the biggest challenges that people have with education at the college level is financial aid. Either you can't afford to go to school or you go and then you can't afford to live after you go to school. So we have to make legislation that helps relieve some of the cost of going to school and to also make, like Steve was saying again, make trade schools an option for those who, want to just have a better future, but they're not going to be a part of the regular college setup. But again, I think the biggest part is funding. Now that's at the college level, high school, Head Start, all of those grades also are having a funding issue because teachers are underpaid. We don't have a paraprofessional in every class, and if we do, they're only getting paid minimum wage. Now, I work in the school system, and a lot of times the paraprofessional becomes a teacher when the teacher is absent. And the $100 a day is not sufficient for people who are single or are head of their households. So we got to figure out a way to either support those paraprofessionals to become teachers, and we have to find a way to write legislation that gives teachers more money. They are the front line. They help our kids every day. They're the front line to development of our future, and we pay them the least. It's sad, and then on top of that, I don't know, they don't have a pension and all kinds of things that people who work for other places like the police department or the fire department is automatically given to them. And so when we say we don't have enough teachers, I'm saying, well, make the pay better, make it more attractive. And they're in a class with 30 kids because it's not enough of them. We got to do something about that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's covered a lot of it. I wouldn't be here if my mom hadn't had access to affordable community college education. That was a stepping stone for her in her career. And so I think keeping our community college, keeping our universities accessible, affordable so that people can like Carolyn said, can actually afford them is huge. Connecticut doesn't have coal mines or big fields of corn. We have our people. And I think what we've heard over and over again tonight is we need to really increase the investment of our people, particularly here in the 94th district. And so beyond accessible and affordable higher education, we need to be demanding an increase in resources for K through 12 education, for early childhood education, for our kids in their formative years. We heard before about the lack of school nurses, the lack of counselors, the lack of social workers. It takes the teachers, it takes the paraprofessionals, it takes that whole support staff to envelop a kid in a learning environment that's going to support their growth. When I was a young kid, I had some real issues with anxiety. I was in the nurse's office every day. If I didn't have that nurse, I probably would have dropped out of school. It was really tough. So that really means a lot to me when we talk about those support services and how important that is for our young people. And that means investment in, fully funding education cost sharing, as well as the targeted funding programs that the state provides to the neediest districts, like Hampton and New Haven, like the Alliance Grant Program. We really need to be making those investments and pushing hard, because even though year after year on the Board of Alders, we increased the education budget, we increased the youth services budget, it is the state that is the primary funder and is ultimately responsible for the public education of our kids in Connecticut.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I do kind of relate to Steve a bit. Actually, in a less fortunate way, where actually only about 4 or 5 months ago, I actually found out that I have ADHD, which I can only really begin to think and wonder, as to what I would have been able to do, or things that I would have been able to accomplish, barriers that I could have broke through. If the schooling system, that I went to, was adequately funding and had what it needed to be able to, better support me. To which, actually, I'm 22 now. Back when I was 14, I actually did a project on our educational cost sharing grant. One of the main reasons why we have inequity as it pertains to, our school funding, where there's the issue that we have in terms of the formula itself inherently being broken and not really taking into account things such as gentrification, poverty, and things of that sort. But also in the fact that the state has said that they're not actually even going, before they actually haven't even given us what we're actually obligated to by ECS. And they've said that they don't plan to by 2026. And once again, having worked in that office, I know very well they can tell us at some point, cool, I don't know if we have the funding for it, let's push it back to 2028. So that is one of my main goals and priorities, especially heading into a biennial budget year, really pushing to make sure that we see true equity in that formula. And then when we really look at higher ed, we've seen chronic disinvestment from it in the past couple of years. I'm thankful I was able to graduate from a state school before some of those increases kicked in. But we have a generation of students to really help and really help achieve their full potential, because still at the source, this state school is cheaper than private school. And then even let's talk about the kids that where technical and trade school is really there for them and is an option, but we're not providing what we should in terms of investment and closing them off from good paying union jobs.
Thank you. Thank you so much to each of our candidates who have provided such insightful answers to your thoughtful questions. This now is a time for closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes to close out with some ending thoughts. We will first start with Terilyn, and then we'll head over to Steve, and then we will finish out with Abdul.
My closing statement is, win or lose, you're gonna see us three work together. You're gonna see us three work together. One of the things I want to make sure we drive home today is that we have to do it together. If we don't all get involved, it's not gonna happen. And we could sit here and have all of these, nice answers, like one of the girls said. She's like, oh, it's all the nice answers. But at the end of the day, if we don't come together, we don't get a plan, nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And, during this process, folks have been, partied up with, I support Abdul, I support. At the end of the day, if we don't come together and get a plan for our district and work that plan, we're gonna be in a worse position the next go round. And we can't afford a next go round. It's now or never. All right? And I yield my time.
So I'm running to represent the 94th district because I really care deeply about this community, as deeply as I know all of you care about this community. And Terilyn's exactly right. It's gonna take a community. It's gonna take all of us working together. And I have the experience, the demonstrated experience building relationships with folks across my district, across the city, over the town line in Hamden, up at the state capitol. I mentioned the national popular vote legislation I helped get passed. I mentioned the housing legislation I helped get passed. Also got climate and energy legislation passed for the city. Worked on tenants unions legislation. We doubled the youth services budget on the Board of Alders while I was on the board, working with the board. So have that experience building relationships and have that experience delivering results. I mentioned the housing. We all care about housing in this room. We got a lot of housing built, first-time home ownership opportunities, affordable, sustainably built rental housing in the 21st ward while I was an alder. So I've done this work. I can build the relationships. I have the experience locally and in Hartford, and I've seen how the policy and resources of the state of Connecticut can hold our community back instead of lifting our community up. And we need to work together as a community to bring that fight for change to the state capitol in Hartford. And I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to do the work. I've done the work. I'm ready to continue doing it. I mentioned a whole bunch of people who've endorsed me. That, I think, is a recognition of the work. I'm going to be working day in, day out, like Abdul said. It's not just when you're in session for a few months.
That's
It's
right.
as soon as session ends, figuring
That's
out
right.
what's the game plan for the next session. All the bills we didn't get through last year.
Right.
We got to fight year round to get it done.
I'm honored to have the opportunity to represent the community that has been as much as home could get. And I think for me, this race really is about the people in this state that are in this community that are dealing with their pain privately. But I believe together we have the ability to take this public and take back the power that is ours.
All right.
We have people in this state that work 40 plus hours a week only to be able to put food on their table at the risk of homelessness. We have teachers that can't afford to live in the cities and municipalities they teach in. We have nurses that don't get paid enough to even get sick in the hospitals they live in.
Come on.
All in the 6th richest state in the world.
Come on.
I mean, in the country. And that is why I'm running, because I believe that it is time that we fight back and take back what is ours. Workers of the world, tenants of this state, and so on and so forth, teachers, community members. Because when we look at it, we all have been wronged in some way.
Yeah.
And like I said, we oftentimes deal with that privately, but I believe it's time that we put hand in hand together and fight. And I believe that's always what I've been about. Not about who's behind me or so on and so forth. So far as it's the community behind me, I am good. And my record speaks on that, where we've done that with housing.
Yeah.
I did that pretty much single-handedly, working with the town engineer when we pretty much got into federal funding for our bus rapid transportation extending to the Hampton Plaza. And we've done that for so on and so forth. And I'm looking forward to doing it as your state representative. And being able to really speak truth to power, because I not only have the experience, but I've lived the experience. I know what it feels like to live with the short, when government gives you the short end of the stick. And that is what I'm going to have with me when I'm fighting for you in Hartford.
Yes.
Let's take a moment and give our candidates a round of applause. Thank you all so much.